big deal for him to give to me because he was anyways cooking for a number of people. So what's the big deal for another person, right? That was the attitude of a orach ra. The Gemara calls that person a bad guest. And the Gemara is very critical of a person who does not have appreciation for his host. And in general, that's their life's important lesson and attitude. How people have to look at things with a very good eye and always look at when someone does something for you, not to look at it, what was the big deal that the person did for you? It wasn't a big deal. It wasn't any sweat off of his back, so to speak. Rather, you should always look at it in a very appreciative way. And what happens is when you look at what someone does for you and you in a very appreciative way, then obviously you're going to treat him a certain way. You're going to have appreciation. You're going to go out of your way for such a person. It increases ava v'achva v'shalom. It increases love and friendship when you're appreciative to somebody. When you're not appreciative of somebody, so then the relationship is not as strong. That's the idea of as well as a husband and a wife. When a person is appreciative, when your wife does something for you and you appreciate it and you feel and you recognize it, you don't just play it down, it's no big deal, but rather you appreciate what she did for you, then that increases your feelings, your warm feelings towards her. So that's a big lesson that we need to take from the Gemara. Everything we learn, the Gemara is full of lessons to apply to everyday life. It's like the Chumash and everything in the Torah. You have to be able to take out from the learning how to apply it to everyday life. So when we learn such a Gemara about a guest being appreciative, we should need to take it to our life in whatever way, in our situation. We might not be guests at someone else's table, but yes, we are benefiting from other people's kindness, and we have to recognize it and be complimentary towards it. And that's what the Gemara says, the idea of giving the compliments. The last thing we said yesterday, and before there's a beautiful Rambam, Maimonides writes, Rambam says that by nature, everybody appreciates a compliment. Every person, if you'll ask any person, do you appreciate a compliment? The answer is yes. So when you go ahead and you compliment somebody, you are doing to somebody else what you by nature would naturally want to be done to you. So therefore you are fulfilling the mitzvah of ahavta l'reacha kamocha. You are loving, you're treating your fellow neighbor like yourself. How? You treat them the same way you would appreciate a compliment. That's how you're treating the other person. Now, there are some people that want a compliment too much. They're looking for a compliment. That's not what we shouldn't be looking for compliments. But yet we appreciate a compliment. And therefore, we have to go ahead and do that to others. Okay, that addresses your point. Now, we're on Nun Ches Amud Aleph, 58a. A very fascinating Gemara we'll get to today. The Gemara says we're up to Va'ish. We're about 10 lines into the wide lines. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, or 11. Va'ish Shaul. We're going to be talking about Shaul HaMelech. And the art scroll, it's 58a, number 2. 58a, number 2, on the top right side of the page. Va'ish b'mei Shaul zakein bo banoshim. And it says that in the days of Shaul, Va'ish, the man, in the days of Shaul, he was zakein, he was an old man, and he came with people. He came with people. What does it mean? Like you say, someone, the person, he came with people. He had an entourage. He had a lot of people with him. What does it mean that he had a lot of people? Who was this person that when he would come, he had a lot of people, was accompanied by a lot of people? You have it? Everyone has the place? Ariel, you got it? So the Gemara says, this person was Yishai. Yishai, the father of David. So Amar Rava, V'temer of Zvid, V'temer of Oshia, Ze Yishai Avi David. This is referring to Yishai, the father of David, that he was a very Adam Chashuv Haya. He was a very prominent person. It helps when you have a father who's very prominent, very important, a great person to help. It helps that the child that grows up in such a home, it's easier for such a child That's what I always tell the guys, that the greater you are, the more you perfect yourself as much as possible, that you're helping your children, because you're going to be the proper role model for your children to be great as well. So Yishai, the Gemara says, was Adam Chashuv Haya. He was a very prominent person. V'yotza b'chlusa, and he would go out with he would be accompanied with 600,000 people. When he would go out, he went out with he would go out. The whole community, the whole Jewish community, would follow him, so to speak. You know, the great rabbi has gone outside. We all want to go ahead and follow him. And when he came back to the town, he came back with so many people. So Rashi says that when he went out, whether he went out to war as a general or when he went out to the yeshiva to learn, he was accompanied by this tremendous amount of people. And the Darash Bechlusa, right? It says he darshaned. When he gave a lecture, he gave a lecture to the whole community. Sometimes you have a rabbi who gives a lecture to a certain part of the community. A certain part of the community comes to the lecture. But it would seem like to me that if he had 600,000 people coming to his lecture, it seemed like the whole community, he was the leader of the community. Ama Ula. Ula says, Naktinan Einu Chusa beBavel. Ula says, we do not, the way the Rambam learns Pshat, outside of Israel, we do not say this bracha. We said there's a special bracha to say, blessing to say when you see 600,000 Jews together. There's a special blessing to say that we said yesterday, Baruch Atah Hashem Chacham Harazim, that God knows what's in the hearts of every one of these 600,000 people. But that bracha of the recognition of the greatness of God on the 600,000 people is not appropriate in the outside of the land of Israel. That's how the Rambam learns Pshat. The Kesef Mishnah explains, the Madani Yontiv explains the why you don't say this bracha outside the land of Israel. Tana enu chusa pachuta meshisha ribet. The chlusa, when we say a lot of people, it means a minimum of 600,000 people. So from the Gemara, if we'll be in Eretz Yisrael, there'll be 600,000 people together. You would say this bracha. Tana Rabbanan. Now the Gemara says, Haroeh Chachmei Yisrael. If someone sees a chacham, a great chacham, a Jewish rabbi, so the question is, what level of scholarship of the rabbi does it have to be in order to say this bracha? There's a special blessing to say on a great rabbi. And in practice, today, I think there are some people that do say this bracha, some rabbis, like Rabbi Avadia Yosef. Some people might have said the bracha. Some people might not say the bracha. The Aruch HaShulchan, when I saw it, says it's not clear from the Gemara what is the level of the scholar. It's hard to know what is the level of the scholarship of this person that would require you to say a bracha on this person. With B'Shem Malchut, correct. So therefore, many people might not say this bracha. We have to look up in the halacha what is the practice in different communities, whether you say a bracha. Some people will say on Chaim Kanievsky. In Bnei Brak, there are some people that will say upon him this bracha. So it's only on certain individuals that they would say this bracha. Haroeh Chachmei Yisrael. Omer, what is the bracha that you say when you see such a unique scholar among Israel, a Jewish scholar? You say, Omer Baruch Shechalak Mechachmato L'Reyav. What is the bracha? You say, Baruch Atah Hashem Malkeinu Melech Olam, that you gave from your chachma to the ones that fear you, to the people that fear Hashem. So it's an amazing text of the bracha. You would have thought that you would say a bracha, Baruch Atah Hashem Elokeinu Melech Haolam, that you gave from your chachma to this person, this individual. We emphasize l'reyav. We emphasize Hashem gave wisdom to the ones that fear him. Meaning to say, it's not about an intellectual exercise. That's not how you become a great rabbi. That's not what the wisdom we're talking about. It has to be the prerequisite to become a great rabbi. You have to have Yirah Shamayim. It emphasizes the Yirah Shamayim, the fact that he's a God-fearing person, because that is the key for him to become. First, you have to be a God-fearing person to be that big rabbi. So therefore, we emphasize that that he gave from his wisdom, that God, remember, it's a gift that God gave, that this person should be have this wisdom, and it's the wisdom of Torah that we're giving a bracha for this person on. He's a big chacham. So Hashem gave him this wisdom, this Torah, and we emphasize li'irayav, to the ones that fear him. And there's a Mishnah, the Berachos says, there's a Mishnah in Pirkei Avot that says anyone whose fear of God is primary, comes before his wisdom will remain. And therefore, in order to be a real chacham, you have to be a Yirat Shamayim. Now, there's another bracha for what about Mechachmei Ovdei Kochavim? If you see a non-Jewish person, chacham, let's say a big mathematician, or a certain type of, or has tremendous wisdom, there's a bracha for him. What's the bracha to say such a person? Now, we're not talking about that he's a pope, that he's wise, that he's wise, that he has wisdom in religious, religious matters, so to speak, whatever that type of, that type of stuff. When we say a wise person among the Gentiles, we're talking about someone who's like a mathematician or some sort of other, was probably maybe a great philosopher, who is intellectual, who has tremendous wisdom. That would be, I presume it's proper philosophy, not inappropriate philosophy. If that type of person, what is the bracha? He's not the Reyav. He's not a God-fearing person. Rather, you say, Baruch Natan Mechachmato Libriotav, that God has given from his wisdom to the people that he created. God created Jews and Gentiles, and that Gentile that God has created, good morning, the Gentile that God has created, he's given him wisdom. They can have wisdom. Hashem gives them this ability to be brilliant and to have wisdom. So we recognize that, and also you have to recognize that that's the gift that God has given this person, this great wisdom. Right, we're going to see about a king. Similarly, there's a bracha on a king, on a Jewish king, we'll see about that, a non-Jewish king. And it's interesting, the commentators point out that look at the difference of the language of the bracha on a Jewish chacham, on a rabbi who's a chacham, who's a brilliant scholar, and a brilliant scholar among the non-Jewish world. What's the difference? One of the language, besides emphasizing the difference between the Jewish scholar is l'reyav, the one who fears Hashem, and the non-Jewish scholar, we just say libriotav. We just recognize he's a creation of Hashem. But the language is, by the Jewish scholar, you say shechalak. You have chalak is like the language of a chelek. You're given a portion, like a part, a piece, so to speak. There's a piece of Hashem, the godliness of Hashem, that Hashem has given to this person, who is the Torah scholar. It's a much more divine connection. This chacham, like we say that Hashem, the Torah, Jewish people are like one, so when you have the wisdom of Hashem in the chacham, it's like a part, and so to speak, it's like a part of Hashem, that holiness of Hashem that's in this person. Therefore, it's chalak, like a chilek. It's like a part of Hashem that went into this chacham. However, the non-Jewish person, the non-Jewish science, mathematician or whatever, the Einstein, Einstein was Jewish. But that type of idea, it's not idea, that wisdom is not that's not the part of Hashem. It's not that godliness, so to speak. So therefore, the language is Natan. Hashem gave from his wisdom. Gave from his wisdom but it's not that level of closeness that when a person learns Torah, when a person is a Chacham, that the part of, so to speak, that level of connection, that part of Hashem that goes into the person. Therefore, the change of the text. Now, here is Rav Daniel's point. Haroye memalchei Yisrael. When you see a Jewish king, what is the bracha for a Jewish king? Right now, some say that this would only be a king that has the ability to kill. Today's day and age, or we'll see, like we're going to see on a president, or because there's a bracha for a non-Jewish king as well. So, do you say a bracha on President Biden? He doesn't have the power, so to speak, on his own, really to do at his own will to kill people. He doesn't have that power to kill. Some people, there's certain things he does have a lot of power, but generally he doesn't have the power to kill, not on a regular basis, not under normal circumstances. He doesn't have a power to kill. But some of the kings in maybe the Middle East, some of the kings, maybe you would be able to say the bracha, some people would say, because they have that power. They do what they want. They have total power. So they're not democracies. So the Gemara says, if you see Malchei Yisrael, a Jewish king, you say Baruch Atah Hashem shechalak mikvodo l'reyav. You say Hashem. Now it's not from the wisdom. The emphasis, a Jewish king, is not the wisdom of Hashem. It's rather the honor of Hashem. Because when a person is a king, he gets tremendous honor. It's the honor that's accorded to a person who's a king is tremendous. With the way the king comes and goes and with such honor. And therefore, you need to recognize that this was a gift, this concept that he should have such an honor. Hashem has shared, so to gave from his honor to the L'Reyath. We refer to also the Jewish king. We emphasize it's not about being just the Jewish king. The king that's supposed to be the real Jewish king is supposed to be L'Reyath. The text is he's supposed to be a God-fearing Jew. He does not need to be the greatest Chacham to be the king of Israel, but he needs to be the Reyav. He needs to be a God-fearing Jew. So one of the Rishash has a very interesting comment. Many of the Jewish kings during the second temple, and even during the second temple, were not great people, were not God-fearing Jews, and yet you could still say the bracha on them, because the reason why they were given the kingship was because of their parents, their grandparents, their great-grandparents. You came from David HaMelech, or you came from other ancestry, and as a result of that, that's why you got the position of kingship. So therefore, we could say Hashem has given from his honor to the ones that fear him, even though this person himself might not fear Hashem. This king might not fear Hashem, but it's still appropriate to say, because the reason why he's king today is because of his great-grandfather who was fear of Hashem. So therefore, it's appropriate to use that text. But I would suggest that the Chachamim maybe perhaps wanted to emphasize, they were concerned about this phenomenon, that maybe there'll be kings that are not going to be God-fearing, and they wanted to encourage and show the people, the community, the importance of Yirat Shamayim, of being God-fearing. And therefore, when they instituted the text of the blessing, let's say in the beginning of the second temple, they wanted to emphasize, because at the end of the day, if people aren't God-fearing, then at the end of the day, we're in big trouble. So therefore, they put in the text for the Jewish king that God has given. You can say the bracha that Baruch Atah Hashem shechalak, he's given from mikvodo, from his honor to the ones that fear him. If you see a non-Jewish king, what is the bracha you say if you see a non-Jewish king? Like I said today, there might be some people that will say on the President of the United States, this bracha. I don't believe it's common that most people, I don't think most people would say the bracha because of what I said before, because he doesn't have total power to do what he wants. Omer, Baruch shenasa mikvodo lebriotam. You say you bless, you recognize Hashem that is given from his honor to the ones that he has created, to his creatures. Okay, so that's the bracha over there. Amar Rabbi Yochanan, and maybe there's also an idea that the rabbis want to. Sometimes people get so what's the right word? Over, when they see this king, this president, overwhelmed, and they become so enamored by this president, and they forget that this president's ability, the honor that he's accorded, was a gift that Hashem has given him. You have to recognize that who's the one behind it? This person should be the king. This person should be the president of the United States. Today, like I said, the bracha, let's say, I said president of the United States, but the king of Middle Eastern countries or wherever it is, that it was God who's the one who was behind it. It should be, and you need to recognize that. Don't just look at this person and say, just be so overwhelmed as if this person made it on his own. So therefore, we have to remember that God is the one who's behind that gave this, that he should be just like everybody understood when Trump won presidency, when he won presidency, it was very clear that it was a gift from Hashem, that he should become president. Because nobody believed he would become president. And but you know what? Hashem wanted him to be president. That's why he was president. So it's obviously, that's an obvious, and therefore you could understand. And Hashem gave from his honor to this person to be the president. Amar Rabbi Yochanan. Now the Gemara says a very interesting concept. We just said that there's a special bracha, a special blessing for a non-Jewish king, for a Jewish king. And the emphasis on the blessing for a Jewish king and a non-Jewish king, what is the meat and the potatoes of the blessing? That God has gave from his honor to the people. Meaning, it's the honor of the king that's really something that really the people really connect to, and they see and they recognize. Wow, like in England, they have the Queen. They still have the way you see a little bit how they honor her, wherever she goes and goes, that type of idea. So Rabbi Yochanan says, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, La'olam yishtadel adam larutz l'kras malchei Yisrael. You should always try to run. Run is like, like it says that you do a mitzvah, you should always run. You should run to do a mitzvah. What do you say? Don't hesitate, be on the move, and be zariz. You should run to see a Jewish king. You should go run to see a Jewish king. Why should you go run to see a Jewish king? And the Gemara says, not only should you go ahead and look to see a Jewish king, even to greet a non-Jewish king, to see the honor that's accorded to a non-Jewish king, you should go ahead and you should run towards that. You should go visit the king, then go to the capital and to see with the president or the king of the country. Why? She'im yizkeh, because if you merit, Rashi says, what does she'im yizkeh mean? If you merit olam haba, if a person will merit to live to have that next world, which you see, it's not such a shoo-in as people would think. People think it's just a shoo-in to get olam haba. There's some people that lose their portion in olam haba. There's some people, Rahman al-Islam, that they live a life that's not appropriate, and they don't make it to the next world. So if a person will merit to olam haba, and they'll see there's going to be a king from the Malchut Beit David, as the Rambam talks about, for descendants from David HaMelech. He'll be the king. He'll be we'll call Melech HaMashiach. He'll go ahead and he'll rebuild the Beit HaMikdash, the Holy Temple, and he'll lead the Jewish people. And he's going to be accorded tremendous honor, tremendous kavod. So what will happen is, when you're going to see when a person's gonna get to the Olam Haba, he'll see the difference between Malchei Yisrael the Malchei of the Kochavim. He'll see the great difference between a Jewish king and a non-Jewish king. You'll see how much, you'll see the great reward that's accorded to people who keep Torah and do great mitzvot. That means that the melech, your contrast. You see, if you never saw a non-Jewish king, the honor that was done to a non-Jewish king, and then you go ahead and then you see the honor that's done to Melech HaMashiach, so you'll say maybe that's the normal honor that's done to somebody. But when you're going to see the honor that's done to the king of Melech HaMashiach, and you'll have what to compare it to, right? You'll have a contrast, because you saw when you saw the honor that was done to a non-Jewish king, and you saw the honor that was done even to a Jewish king in this world. But you're going to see the great difference that's going to be in the next world, and then you'll appreciate the greatness of people who keep Torah and keep mitzvot. So that's why it's important to go ahead. The Gemara says, why should you go today to see a non-Jewish king? Because then you'll realize later on, look at the difference. The non-Jewish king only got the honor that he got is nothing compared to the honor that we're gonna see by the Melech HaMashiach. So the Gemara continues. Rav Sheshet Sagi Nohav. Rav Sheshet was blind. The Gemara used the terminology when you refer to the blind man. How do we refer to the blind man? Sagi Nohav, full of light. The Gemara always likes to talk in a very positive way. You don't want to, you talk, even when the person is missing something, we don't want to refer to him as he's blind in that open fashion. We call him full of light. Rav Sheshet Sagi Nohav. And everybody heard the king was coming to town, or everybody was going to greet the king. Vikam Azal Bahadayu Rav Sheshet. And Rav Sheshet says, I also want to go, I want to greet the king. Even though Rav Sheshet was blind, he wants to go greet the king. Ashkechehu Tzeduki. There was a Tzeduki. There was a person, a Tzeduki. These were the Jewish people that went off the prophet Derech, and they only believed in the written law. They did not believe, they didn't believe in the oral law, and they caused a lot of problem for the Jewish community. And you'll see the chutzpah of this person as well, because when people do not keep the Torah properly, when when it's not authentic Torah, like these people, they kept the written law, not the oral law. So it affects their personality, the way they act as a person. Because proper Torah study and proper Torah fulfillment affects the way the person acts, the way the person talks, the way the person interacts with people. But if a person is not authentic, because he's not keeping the Torah properly, so you'll see his midot, the way he acts, will be very negatively affected. So what does he say? So the Saduki said to Rav Sheshet, he said, he used like a parable. If you have a pitcher and the pitcher is complete, there's no holes in the pitcher. So that's the type of thing. You go to the river to draw water. You take a pitcher that's whole. Kagne laya. But if the pitcher is broken, why should they go to the river with a broken pitcher? Because what will happen if you go to a river with a broken pitcher, whatever water you put into the pitcher will fall out. There's no purpose of going to the river with a broken pitcher. So in other words, what was he saying? He said, why are you going? You can't see the king. You can't see the honor that's accorded to the king. So that's a very insulting comment that the Saduki said to Rav Sheshet. Amalei. So Rav Sheshet said to the Saduki, Ta, I want you to come. Chazi diadana tseminach. I want to show you, I know better than you when the king is going to come. We now, with the first word of the line is kigane. So I know even though Rav Shesha is blind, he says, I know when the king is going to come better than you. Chalaf gunda kamaita kika afsha. The first group of people who escorted the king, today's day and age, it's like we have the limousines. The limousine goes in front of the president or front of the king. It's the first, the king. You have one set of limousines coming, another set. You also always for protection purposes. You have him protected from the front, from the back. You have usually, I presume he's in the middle. I haven't seen so many presidents, but that's what I would think. So the first group of people that escorted the king passed by, and there was a lot of noise when the first group of the entourage of the king is passing by. The Saduki thought that the king was coming, but there's a whole tumult, as they say. Amaleu Saduki Atamalka. The Saduki tells the blind man, the king is coming now. Amalei Rav Shesha Lokati. Rav Shesha said, he's not coming. Rav Shesha says that he's not coming right now. Lokati. The king is not coming now. Chalav Gunda Tanyana Kika Afsha. Then a second group of people that were part of the entourage of the king came. They were passing, and they came. There was a lot of sound, a lot of noise. Maybe there was music, who knows what. Amalei Saduki Hastakati Malka. So the Saduki says to the rabbi, Rabbi, the king is coming now. Because the Saduki thinks that he needs to tell the rabbi when the king is coming, because the rabbi was blind. Rav Shesha was blind. Amalei Rav Shesha Lo Kati Malka. Rav Shesha said the king is not coming. You're making a mistake. Chalav Tlitai Kikashatka. The third group that was part of the entourage of the king was coming, but when they came, there was no sound, there was no noise, everything was very quiet. Amalei Rav Shesha, so Rav Shesha said to the Saduki, Vadai hashta atamalka. Definitely now, this is a sign, this is the king. The king is coming right now. Amalei Saduki, and that's what happened. The king came. So the Saduki said, Menalacha, how do you know? You can't see. How do you know that this is now that the third group of people that are coming, when it's quiet, and they're coming, that this is a sign that the king is coming? He says, Amalei Machuta Da'ara Ke Machuta Derekia. The way the kings work down here is the same way it works in the heavens. The way Hashem works in the Malchut of Hashem, in God's kingship, is the same way it happens down here in the world down here. When Hashem, so to speak, when the glory of Hashem, Shechina, the divine presence, when Hashem, so to speak, appears in the open, the Ksiv, by Eliyahu HaNavi, when Hashem appeared to Eliyahu, when the honor of Hashem appeared to Eliyahu, it says, say, V'amadata b'ha lifnei Hashem. The pasuk says, go stand in the mountain in front of Hashem. V'hine Hashem over. And Hashem will be, you'll see the divine presence. V'ruach gedolah, v'chazak, a great ruach, a great wind, Mefarik Harim, that's ability to break mountains, Meshabes Slaim, and has the ability to break the rocks, Lifnei Hashem. And with all that great wind, with all that storm, the great storm, and then we fire, but you know what? Lo Baruch Hashem. Hashem is not going, the divine presence won't show itself in that great wind, that will be passing through. And after there'll be this wind, there will be a rash, a big storm after the wind. And Hashem, and also Hashem will not be, the divine presence will not be coming over there as well. Meaning rash is like an earthquake. So after the wind will be an earthquake, so to speak. And lo barash Hashem. And Hashem will not, the divine presence won't be revealed in the earthquake. But and Achaharash will be H. Then there'll be a fire. You'll see a fire. And lo be'esh Hashem. And Hashem, you won't see, and Hashem is not going to show his divine presence in the fire. But Achah after the fire, be called the mama daka. It'll be a very thin sound. And that thin sound, that's where at that point, there will be the divine presence will be shown. So therefore, since upstairs in heaven, that's how it's done. When Hashem reveals his Shekhinah's divine presence, it's done. Not, there's a few things that precede, but then it's followed by a more of a silence. So too, that's how it works down here in the world down here. Ki'ata Malka, when the king came, Patach Rav Sheshet to come avarach le. Rav Sheshet said a bracha on the king, even though he didn't see the king. The Magen Avram says, so we see from the Gemara that a blind person could say the bracha on the king. And the Pri Megadim says that because the blind man recognizes, even though he doesn't see the king, he recognizes the great honor that's accorded to a king. Everybody is quiet. Everybody fears the king. Everybody is quiet when he comes. So therefore, it's appropriate to say the bracha on something that the blind, because there are a lot of, if a blind person, let's say on lightning, a blind person doesn't see lightning, he can't say a bracha on lightning. But because he didn't see the lightning, he didn't benefit from the lightning. But here, so to speak, he benefits from, he recognizes the kingship of the king, even though he doesn't actually see it. So therefore, you can say the bracha. Amalei has Saduki. Now the Saduki continues with his chutzpah. You're saying a bracha to someone that you do not see. You don't see the king, and you're saying a bracha. So, some say the friends of the Saduki poked out his eye. He got punished, and his eyes got taken out. Meaning you were poking fun of the eyes of this rabbi, so to speak. You were the blind rabbi you were making fun of, so his eyes got knocked out. And Ikadiyami Rav Sheshet Nasan Einabo. Some say Rav Sheshet looked at him in a very negative way, like cursed him, and Venasa Gal Shat Samot, and he just died, and he became a pile of bones. People have to be careful how they talk to Chachamim. People should not act with chutzpah. And therefore, that's how it ended up for that person. Have a great day, everybody. And we'll see hopefully everybody tomorrow. Have a great day. Thank you, everybody, for joining in.
Thanks, Rabbi. Have a good day.
Thank you very much. All the best to everybody. Have a great day. You're welcome. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Have a good day.
Nice class.
Yeah,